Thank you for joining us here at Text Messages The Resurrection, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rick Tex, the parasite of the show. Glad to be broadcasting here once again. We broadcast out of Elk River, Minnesota, which is it's about probably 5 minutes due north of the Albertville Outlet Malls. So we're probably within about biking distance of that. Today, obviously, won't want to because there's roughly 2 feet of snow outside. Definitely a lot of shoveling. Required a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of sweat, a lot of blood. But we're here. We're going to film a show, and that's what we do. Typically try to do it 7 days a week. Usually averages out to probably 5 or 6. But we just do the best we can. I mean, we do have a skeleton crew, so that doesn't really help matters too much. But it is nice too because there's not... Like, for example, if we were absolutely entrenched on having a 3-hour show every night, then we'd have a big crew and everything, and then, the quality would probably deteriorate. Because, I mean, you've probably seen some of those shows before where they're, they consistently run 3 hours, 2 hours every night. So they got to fill the content. I mean, I'll admit, when we started Text Messages and it was an hour long, a lot of it was filler material, just complete nonsense garbage. I mean, there might have only been about 5 minutes of worthwhile content. So now we've tried to condense that down into actually having, 10, maybe 20 minutes of worthwhile content. I mean, yeah, we do have occasional filler material, and even when we got 15 or 20-minute shows or 10-minute shows, but that's just the reality of talk shows, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to inform and to entertain. So part of the entertaining is the filler garbage. Now, what we want to talk about today, as you can see from the illustration on the green screen, this is known as a kidney. Generally, people have 2 of them. They're located right underneath your rib cage. So if you do get punched underneath the rib or something, your kidneys could potentially be harmed by that. What the kidneys essentially do is they filter and process blood. Now, roughly, if they get 100 quarts of blood, they might filter out 1 quart of it, and then that's waste that's sent to the bladder through a urinary tube. So urine comes out of the kidney. Blood goes into the kidney, urine comes out. Now they got they're like these little tiny capillaries that do all the filtration inside the kidneys. We'll get into them later. But what they do is they remove a lot of waste and extra water. So if you're drinking a whole bunch of water, that's why your urine is usually clear colored, because your kidney is just getting rid of all the excess water that doesn't need anymore. And they do receive some useful chemicals like sodium, phosphorus, and potassium, and then they release them back into the blood. So the kidney tries to regulate those levels. So that's how the kidney gets signals from the nervous system. As you can see, that there is nervous system connections here. The kidney will get signals from the nervous system to regulate those sodium, phosphorus, and potassium. Well, if you buy NPK, that's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But this is sodium, phosphorus, and potassium, all vital minerals to the human existence and the communication pathways. So the nervous system will send signals to the kidney to say, all right, we don't really need this much sodium. We need more potassium. We need more phosphorus. So the kidneys will send the sodium into your bloodstream or into the urine, and then it'll send the phosphorus and the potassium back into the blood. So when you urinate, you'll urinate sodium. So if you ever got a urine test, that's why a lot of drugs show up in urine as well, because your kidneys are getting rid of it. So a lot of the waste material comes from muscle breakdown and food. Yeah, obviously, when you go to the bathroom, there's fecal matter and there's urine. And the fecal matter does not go through the kidneys. The kidneys just deal with the liquid portion, the urine. So the kidneys releases the hormones erythropoietin, or EPO, which stimulates the red blood cells through the bone marrow, and they also give off renin, which regulates the blood pressure. The kidney has a multifarious task of responsibilities as well. It also activates vitamin D, which maintains calcium for bones and chemical balance. And when you get more sunlight, you probably heard that the sunlight provides vitamin D. So what the sunlight does is it allows your body to synthesize the vitamin D. So then the kidneys can then activate the vitamin D. That's basically how it works. It just changes its chemical structure a little bit, or it gives it a plus or minus charge, and then it does its thing. So all these systems of the body just work in conjunction that way. So you may have heard the term renal function. That's the capacity, the kidney capacity. So if you have 100% renal function, both kidneys are working great. They're firing on 8 cylinders or inline 6 cylinders, which is actually more balanced than an 8-cylinder engine. Now, if you only have 50% and you have both kidneys, likely you have a progressive kidney disease that will probably worsen without good lifestyle changes. And now what happens, kidney diseases are usually result from attacking the nephrons. See, the nephrons are little capillaries. They're like little tiny blood veins, blood vessels. And then they do all the filtration. So a lot of times they get damaged from diabetes or high blood pressure. Because you got to think about it. Think of like a car filter. If you're throwing a bunch of sand on the filter, that's like the excess blood sugar in type 1 and even type 2 diabetes. So if that blood sugar keeps going in your kidneys and in your bloodstream and back in your kidneys, they're going to they have a more of an abrasive effect than other aspects of the blood. So then they'll start to damage those little capillaries, those nephrons, what they call them. And then the high blood pressure too. It's just you're putting more pressure on the capillaries. So if you're getting punched in the face and somebody's punching you and it's not very hard, it's not going to damage you much. But if they punch you extremely hard, then it'll damage you a lot more. So that's essentially high blood pressure to these nephrons. Now, so if the sugar stays in the blood and it's not able to break down, it'll cause nephropathy, which sometimes over time, if it's not treated and people just continue to eat sugar and carbohydrates, even if they're diabetic, they will eventually need to get kidney dialysis, possibly even a kidney donor. Now, there are also hereditary conditions too, which is polycystic kidney disease. Essentially, that's cysts in the kidney. They're just abnormal growth. Sort of like a cancer growth, except they call them cysts. Usually there's any mysterious growth in the body that's not nature or not, inherent or innate within the body's own biological systems, they call it cancer. Because cancers essentially are trying to grow an extra living entity. But the cyst, polycystic kidney disease, it's hereditary. Scientists think they've identified a gene or 2 or maybe 3 that gives it off. But it's always hard to tell with that kind of stuff. So there are some over-the-counter medicines which can be poisonous, mostly the pain suppressants. Aspirin, acetaminophen, and ibuprofen are the biggest culprits. So, I mean, a lot of times, see, I've always been strictly adhered to this principle that if you're in pain, you're better off just to deal with it, unless it impedes things like sleep. So there was probably one time in my entire existence where I actually did take pain pills, like the oxycodone, Vicodin, whatever it's called, after wisdom teeth removal, which I later found out that was probably completely unnecessary, and I just had to align my jaw and get my jaw where it needs to be. And my wisdom teeth could have grown in normally because the jaw size would have been good. But going back to it, take the Vicodin or whatever, you'd be good for 4 hours, then you'd be in excruciating pain again, so you had to take it again, then back to excruciating pain. So if I wanted to actually sleep for more than just sleep at all in general, given the pain, basically had to take the Vicodin. So that was one exception I made. But otherwise, it's just painkillers, they just do more harm than good. I mean, your body is trying to cure or heal the systems that are causing the pain, that are creating the pain. So this whole medication thing just masks the symptoms. And yeah, if masking those symptoms mean you can do very valuable things in the meantime, then there probably is some value to it. But if it's just you're a little uncomfortable being in pain, it's not worth the damage to the kidneys that you're going to cause, and then the festering of the ailment that because you're not allowing it to heal because you're trying to attack the symptoms, which the symptoms are the ones that are trying to cure the ailment. So acute renal failure from blood loss or poison can cause sudden loss functionality of the nephrins, which are the filters, reduces their ability to filter the poison. So the poisons keep going through your blood and through your kidneys, and then they just keep going to all your other random body parts and accumulating in your organs, and possibly they'll get in your blood-brain barrier. It's going to cause a very deleterious effects and a cascading disaster of epic proportions that you certainly don't want to deal with. Now, how can you detect kidney disease? Usually the blood and the urine test, they identify there's too much creatinine or urea nitrogen and protein. See, the creatinine is the muscles breaking down. You probably heard of creatine. You build up your muscles with that. So this, you can actually identify the creatinine in your urine and then in your blood too. So the creatine, it's expelled in the urine, so they can measure the serum creatine, which is the measure in your blood. So what they do is they come up with a creatine clearance number, which measures the urine and the blood, and then they compare it, and then determine how much creatinine your kidneys are removing. So if it's not removing enough, then you know that you might have some problems. And then there's also the blood urea, nitrogen. You know, it carries the protein for use by the cells after use of the waste product. And it's returned to the blood as urea. You know, it's compounded with nitrogen. It's very unhealthy for the kidneys to leave urea in the blood, so you don't want to have high levels of it. You know, which is why it's just... That's usually what doctors look for when you go in for routine testing, blood tests and urine tests and all that good fun stuff. Well, usually if you go for urine tests, probably to identify drugs, but I mean, if you were for health interest or an annual checkup or whatever the case may be, then they can definitely test those things. So, you may have heard of kidney stones as well. We're going to delve into that a little bit. Mostly kidney stones are calcium oxalate compound or calcium phosphorus. And one of the ways that you can apparently break up the kidneys is citrus fruit, and with the citrate, is it binds with the calcium, so it prevents the calcium from binding with the oxalate. Now, a couple of the other things you can do is drink a lot of water. I try to avoid high sodium foods like cheese, deli meat, canned food, baked foods, chips, pretzels, dressings. Basically anything that requires a long shelf life with a lot of preservatives. I mean, take something like meat, for example. Usually you need to cook meat or put it in the refrigerator or freezer. So deli meats, for example, it's just meat at room temperature, which is basically doused with preservatives. And sodium this, sodium that, sodium the other thing. It's not something you really want to deal with if you want to tackle kidney stones. And what you do want to have is additional fruits and vegetables because they have the potassium, fiber, magnesium, antioxidant, phytates, and citrates. Now, phytates are an antioxidant compound. They usually bind to the manganese, calcium, and then the iron and zinc. So they'll slow the absorption of it, which isn't necessarily a good thing to have. And they're typically used as a preservative. Nuts happen to have a very high phytic acid content, which is why you can have walnuts and pecans and almonds and pistachios just sit on your shelf for a year or two and not really have any bad side effects. But unfortunately, they do reduce mineral absorption. However, zinc in meat is readily absorbable even in the presence of phytic acid. So and that's another reason why it's important to get a wide multifarious sources of food intake and nutrients. And the phytic acid is supposedly, I mean, to alleviate some of the kidney stones or to break them apart, or whatever the case may be, it definitely helps. But probably the smartest thing you can do is drink a lot of water. Pretty much anytime you look into any health-related matter, the number one solution is always drink water. Now, if you drink a lot of coffee, yeah, coffee's mixed as water, it's a liquid and all that. But it actually can dehydrate you, like many other drinks do, especially if they're doused with sugars and sodiums and all that other good fun stuff. And if they're poisonous water, if they got the fluoride and chlorine and high content of those minerals, you definitely don't want to consume them. You know, fluoride gets on your pineal gland, it calcifies it, it gets in your brain, it causes reduction in IQ, and then chlorine kills cells. And I mean, yeah, there is some chlorine that's used in the body. It's a necessary mineral, so just to some extent it is healthy, but fluorine, nothing good comes of fluorine. Same with bromide. You know, that's usually what they put in the bread now. They used to put iodine in it, but now it's just mostly bromide, which is just it binds to some of your receptors on your thyroid and other parts of your body too. Not a very good deal there, ladies and gentlemen. So with that being said, yeah, I mean, every time I read more about health articles, it's just drink water. That's clean water, not garbage water or water filled with a bunch of bleach and chlorine and fluorine. You know, water that has the magnesium, the calcium, the iron, the zinc, and all that. Yeah, you do want to filter out lead and cadmium and maybe some forms of nitrogen too. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for tuning in this evening. Hopefully you learned some valuable information that'll allow you to be great again, and hopefully you're entertained as well. More than likely, we'll probably be back again tomorrow evening. We happen to have an excess amount of time today, and hopefully we'll be able to add some additional shows to our channel in the very near future as well. So stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. We're excited for the future. Maybe some more shows will come up, maybe whether it's on our channel or other people's channels. You know, if Good Times Balls Deep, that'd probably be a #1 rated show in the state of Minnesota. It may have the potential of being higher rated than that public access show from the early 2000s, but I wouldn't really go out on a limb to make that claim. But thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate it, and good night.